good evening. Welcome back to TheDustyFeet. Today's August 6th, 2026, and tonight we're going to returning to another Branches on the Vine conversation with Aleph Beta. Okay, so recently we've spent time with the fifth word, right? Honoring your father and your mother. And that conversation left me thinking about those through whom we receive life. Okay, what does it mean to honor them? How might honoring our parents shape the way we understand our relationship with God, right? And those questions, they brought to mind this Aleph Beta video from Emu called Appreciating Our Creators. So the video explores Deuteronomy chapter 8. It says within Parshat Ekiev. And Emu approaches the passage from a different direction than our discussion was on the fifth word. But still, I think these two paths meet. Both ask us to look behind what we've received, behind the food, behind the home, behind the opportunities, even behind the strength to work, behind life itself. And I think they both invite us to notice the love, the labor, and the provision that helped all of that make our lives possible. So, today, we're going to spend some time within that teaching, see what we notice, because we're going to ask what it may have to say about gratitude, honor, our parents, and about the God who gives us life and the strength to live it. Okay, so be sure to watch the original Aleph Beta video. The link to that will be in the description below. And it provides the fuller context for this conversation that we're about to talk about, right? So let's explore appreciating our creators on the Dusty Feet. At the Dusty Feet, we believe meaningful conversations grow when people have a welcoming place to share, ask questions, listen to one another. There are 4 ways you can connect with us. 1. Visit TheDustyFeet.com. That's our main home for everything that we create. 2. Find us on Substack, where written and spoken reflections give us room to slow down and connect. Link is in the description below. 3. Join us on Facebook at Dusty Feet Journey for comments and discussion. Or 4, you can email me directly at bob@thedustyfeet.com. Wherever you join us, we ask that the conversation remain healthy, respectful, and safe. So, pull up a chair. There's always room for you at the table. So, before we jump in, quick reminder, if you find these discussions useful, please then click subscribe. But if someone else you know may enjoy exploring the scriptures this way, please like and share that episode with them, because this really does help more people discover our conversations. And as always, right, we're not rushing toward easy answers. We're opening the text, we're asking those questions, and we're seeing where the paths that we take on wander down lead. So the teaching begins in Deuteronomy chapter 8. Okay, Israel is nearing the end of its wilderness journey. This new generation is preparing to enter the land. And Moses is looking back over the past 40 years. But he's also looking ahead, right? He knows that the people are about to experience a very different kind of life. The wilderness had been a place of daily dependence. But this land, that would become a place of farms, homes, vineyards, livestock, even harvests, right? The wilderness had offered manna, but the land is going to require plowing, planting, tending, gathering, and that dependence, it had been obvious in the wilderness, but in the land, this is where he brings up, I think it just might become easier to forget. Because before Israel crosses that border, crosses the Jordan, right? Moses tells the people to remember this entire road that God led them along. Remember the rescue from Egypt. Remember the sea. Remember Sinai. Remember the manna and the water. But then Moses uses difficult words. He says, God humbled the people. He says, God tested them. He says they experienced hunger before receiving manna. And that might make us pause. I mean, Moses is not describing the wilderness as a pleasant retreat, right? The hardship is very real. So why would a loving God allow his children to experience hunger? Why would he permit them to feel lack, right, before giving them what they needed? Why would Moses bring this up as Israel prepares to enter the land? Because he could have focused only on the victories, all the good parts, but instead, he's going to remind them that they'd been hungry. Interesting choice for a speech. So then Emu. Emu introduces us to what at least he calls the skeptical reader, right? That reader that hears the passage. And then he asks, God allowed the people to become hungry, and then he fed them, and now he expects them to be grateful, right? Why should God receive praise for a problem he already allowed to happen? It's not a foolish question. And it really shouldn't be brushed aside, right? Because I think sometimes we act as though when we're talking about God that it means refusing to hear these difficult questions about him. The Scripture doesn't seem to be afraid of those questions. I mean, the Psalms ask them. The prophets ask them. Moses, Abraham, Job asks them. I think questions can be part of a living relationship. So with that, I want to leave this question, I'm going to leave it on the table. Was God simply demanding recognition? Or is Moses really trying to show Israel something deeper? So Emu, he responds with the picture of this teenage son and a stocked refrigerator. Right? Every day, son comes home from school. He's hungry, right? He opens the fridge, takes something he wants, goes on with his day, right? His father isn't upset that he ate. The food was purchased for his family. The father wants his son to be fed. So maybe the problem is not that the child received the gift. Maybe the problem is that he no longer recognizes it as a gift. I mean, if someone were to ask, where'd the food come from? He might actually say, I got it from the refrigerator. And that answer? It's partly true, but it's definitely not the whole story. I mean, food didn't grow inside the refrigerator. Someone had to earn the money, chose the food, paid for it, carried it home, put it away. Behind the provision is a person, right? Behind that full refrigerator, we could call it an act of care. But the father is not asking for applause because he just brought the groceries home. The father wants his son to recognize that there's love behind what he receives. Because when we take provision for granted, right, we also begin to take the provider for granted, right? So Emu then kind of imagines this refrigerator being empty for a little while, for a short time. The son opens the door. Nothing's there. And he begins to notice what maybe had been overlooked. That food does not simply appear. The refrigerator is not the source. So then this father, he takes his son to the store. They choose the food, they compare prices, they pay for it, they carry it home, and they put it away. So the son begins to see the process once that happens, he realizes that it's not automatic. The lack helps him notice the gift. And then the gift helps him notice the giver. That is the heart of the analogy, right? The wilderness, it was in a sense Israel's empty refrigerator because there were no fields to harvest. There was no bakery, no pantry filled by their own labor. So yeah, they experienced hunger. And then manna appeared. Not from the soil that they had cultivated, not from storehouses they had filled. This bread, well, it just became a daily gift. And then through that experience, Israel was learning. Bread, it has a source. Life, it has a source. Provision, it has a source. They're not alone. They're not forgotten. And they are being cared for. Moses then uses the language of this parent-child relationship, right? He tells Israel to understand in their hearts that as a parent guides and corrects a child, God has been guiding, correcting, and protecting them, right? That relationship matters. Because this Israel is not a labor force that is being prepared to serve this powerful God. They are God's children. God is forming them as his covenant people, right? He's teaching former slaves how to live in freedom. He's teaching them to trust. He's teaching them that life is more than just bread alone. And I think we sometimes hear that phrase as though maybe physical food just doesn't matter. We know that can't be the point because God fed Israel. Hungry people need bread, right? Not by bread alone does not mean bread is unimportant. It means bread is not the final source of life, right? Bread, it depends on land, rain, seed, labor, skill, time, breath. We merely participate in that process. We did not create the world that even makes all that possible. And that's when Moses turns Israel's attention toward the land ahead. He describes a good land. This is a land of streams and springs, wheat and barley, right? Grapes, figs, pomegranates, olive oil, honey. This is a land where people will eat without scarcity, right? They're going to build homes. They're going to have crops. Their livestock are going to increase. That empty refrigerator, it's about to become very full. And this is surprisingly probably the most dangerous moment. It's true, hardship can certainly threaten faith. Pain can shake us. Loss can confuse us. The wilderness can make us wonder whether God is even present. But abundance brings this whole nother danger, right? When the house is built, when the table is full, when the business succeeds, when that harvest arrives, we may forget. And not because we have nothing, it's actually because we have plenty. And Moses warns Israel about the words that may quietly form in the heart. My power and the strength of my hand produce this wealth. To be honest, those words contain some truth, right? Israel will work the land. They will plant the seeds. They're going to tend the fields. They're going to gather the crops. They're going to bake the bread. Their effort is real. Their skill matters. But Moses is not asking to deny that. He just asks them to remember something deeper, right? Remember, it's God who gives them the strength to even produce this. Because even our ability to work is something we've received. We didn't create our bodies, right? We didn't give ourselves breath. We did not design the soil or the seed, right? We didn't create time. We did not choose every person who taught us or prepared the way for us, with us, or ahead of us. We work and live within a story that began before us. None of us is truly self-made. So I think this is where the connection to the fifth word is, right? Honor your father and your mother, right? Because we hear this command only in terms of obedience at times. What your parents say, respect their authority, do what they tell you, those ideas may be part of the conversation, especially when you're very young. But honor reaches deeper than simply compliance, right? It's to honor someone, it's to give them, it's to give weight to who they are and to recognize their place in our story. The fifth word reminds us that we did not give life to ourselves, right? Before we had language, someone spoke to us. Before we could feed ourselves, someone fed us. Before we could walk, someone carried us. And before we understood the world, the people were already shaping this whole world around us. Yes, family stories can be complicated, right? Honoring parents does not require pretending every choice was good or that every wound should be ignored. But it does invite us to remember that our stories did not begin with us. As parents, they stand at a unique point in that story. They remind us that we're receivers. We're receivers before we are achievers. But it doesn't diminish our own work, right? Moses is not asking Israel to enter the land, sit down, wait for the bread to fall from heaven forever. Because they would plant, they would tend, harvest, build, create, and they would enjoy those results. Moses says they're going to eat and be satisfied. So the problem isn't satisfaction. The problem is forgetfulness, right? It's when it begins when achievement convinces us that we need nobody else. So then Emu, that in his story, that grown-up son, right? He may eventually stock his own refrigerator, earn the money. He buys the food. He cooks the meal. And then he can honestly say, I did this. But that's still not the whole story, right? Someone once fed him. Someone taught him. Teachers shaped him. Friends encouraged him. And then there were workers. Workers grew. They transported. They sold the food. So yeah, his achievement is real. But it still remains just but a thread that's woven into this larger community tapestry. And recognizing that does not erase the work. It does not remove the thread. It places our work inside that fuller story. It puts our thread inside that fuller whole story. Because in our modern world, this may make this story especially easy to overlook. Because bread, it appears on supermarket shelves. Water, it just comes from a faucet. Light just appears when we flick a light switch. We have food that arrives at a door after just a few taps on our phone screens. We end up usually only encountering what might only be the final step in a much, much longer life process. Because that loaf of bread, it carries the work of farmers, millers, drivers, bakers, engineers, all those store workers, right? Our independence actually depends on people that actually we will probably never, ever meet. And then beneath all of that is creation itself. It's actually the foundation, right? Literally soil, water, air, time, strength, community, life. Yeah, we may say, I earned it. I built it. I did it myself. And those statements may contain some truth, but they're simply not, again, the whole truth. So Moses then gives Israel a practice to resist forgetfulness. This is his practice. He says, when you eat and are satisfied, bless God for the good land that he gave you. So notice the order. I liked this. This really got to me. Eat, be satisfied, then bless, right? It says, enjoy the gift, then remember the giver. That gratitude, it's not meant to ruin the meal. It's meant to deepen the meal. It turns that consumption, actually, it turns it into relationship. Because it allows us to enjoy what we have without pretending that it just came from nowhere or by our own hand. So that may be actually one way where honor becomes visible, right? We pause, we notice, we remember the source, and then we say, thank you. And it's not because God's insecure. It's not because our parents require constant praise. Gratitude keeps the relationship from disappearing. Well, it keeps us from disappearing behind what we end up receiving from anyone. So I think maybe perhaps that's the connection between Deuteronomy chapter 8 and the fifth word. Both challenge forgetfulness. Both ask us to give weight to relationship. Both remind us that life is received before it's achieved. Both invite us to look beyond the gift. And I think when we recognize the source, then that gratitude becomes more than polite words. It becomes a way of seeing. It becomes a humility. It becomes honor. And inside of that, it strengthens the relationships that are attached. So a few questions for us to talk amongst ourselves about, right? So what do I receive each day without noticing? Whose work that helped make my life possible up to this point? Can I take a healthy pride in my work while still remembering where all of my strength, all of my learning, all of my teaching, all of my experiences, remembering where they came from? What have I received from my parents that's worth carrying forward, right? And what might honest honor look like within my particular family story? And then when I'm eat and I'm satisfied, right? Do I remember more than the meal, more than the refrigerator, more than the paycheck? Do I notice the love, the labor, the creation, actually the entire community behind what I've received? I think those are questions actually worth pondering. I appreciate Emu Shalev and the Aleph Beta team for giving us another path through the Torah, right? Their teaching does not make every difficult question just disappear, but it may help us understand why Moses wanted Israel to remember both the wilderness and the good land. The wilderness taught them that bread didn't appear by magic. In the land, it would reveal whether they could remember that lesson once they began producing everything from their hand. The danger wasn't that they would work. The danger was that they would forget. So maybe, can we work with skill? Can we build and create? Can we eat and be satisfied? And still, may we never forget, may we always remember, right? And then with that, may we then honor the people through whom life, teaching, and wisdom came to us. And then going forward with people, may we tell the whole truth about our stories. Remember, may we always remember the God who gives us life, who gives us breath, who gives us the strength to do all the work that, well, He set before us. So thank you for walking this dusty path with me. The link to Emu Shaleb's original Aleph Beta video, appreciating our creators, it'll be in that description below. Please take time to watch it and support the wonderful work being done with the Aleph Beta team. So until next time, keep asking questions, keep noticing the gifts, keep remembering the givers. Keep walking with humble hearts and dusty feet. Shalom, shalom.